Today we are going to cover how to get your family on board. I'm ready to rock and roll. Are y'all ready? Let's do it. We're going to start off with a very quick discussion of the concept of short game versus long game. Now, for those of you that already have the notes, I gave you actually a pretty detailed description of the difference between short game and long game. And I'm not going to just reread that for you right now because I know you can read it in your own time, but I'm going to give you a quick summary. So the long game, or anything related to the long game, is all about having long-term planning, about having strategy and putting preparation and thought and into the direction where you are headed. And again, think of it like, in the game of football when you're trying to get into the end zone, or when you're, when you're playing the game of golf and you're wanting to make sure that, trying your best to get it into the hole or up onto the green, etc. So looking very strategically and purposefully and intentionally at the end result that you're wanting to create, and it's usually considered to be over the long haul. Okay, thank you everybody for sharing. I see your comments and I see you and I appreciate you very, very much. Hey, so that's long game. Okay, what is short game? Short game, well, it would be the opposite of that, okay? So the short game is it's more about getting sucked into the moment, getting caught up in the nonsense, all of the things that kind of frustrate us in the moment, so we're not really able to deal and conduct ourselves strategically and proactively. It's more like we're having to work reactively. Does that make sense? So just like whatever is right in front of your face at the moment, we're putting out fires, we're reacting, we're just dealing with the urgent things as opposed to the proactive strategic things, okay? So that is the understanding of the difference between long game and short game. So obviously, which one do we want to play? We want to play the long game, right? So this really applies to pretty much everything in our lives, in our personal life, in our professional life, all of the above. So with that awareness, we're going to look at, as much as we can from a long game strategy in regard to getting our family on board, getting our family's support. We're going to start there, looking at the long game. Then, once we've done that, once we've really established what we want that to look like, then I'm going to share with you some short game tactics, some short game, very practical application tips and tools that you can use right now while you're in the process of transforming your family into a long game strategy. Sound good? Okay, so first thing that I want to ask you is, do you have goals for your family? Okay, think about that for a second. Do you have goals for your family? In other words, relationship goals. Not just, I want us to have, money in the bank. I want us to live in this house. I want da-da-da. No, I'm talking about like your actual family goals. Okay, so this, by the way, is something that we're going to cover a lot of in Quick Tip Thursday this week. So I told you this week is all about a focus on the family. And on Thursday this week, we're going to talk about the concept of a thriving family unit, what that means, what it looks like, how we can figure out where we are, and how to move ourselves into that situation. Okay, so we're going to focus a lot on that on Thursday. But for right now, I just want to ask you, do you have goals for relationships with your individual family members and then for your family unit as a whole? Okay, why is that important? That is very, very important to our long game. Why? Here's why. Much of our family's support, or their lack of support, if you will, is totally subconscious. Okay? Most family members are not consciously, maliciously out to get you, out to sabotage you, and out to block your success, okay? There are a few evil ones out there, let's not lie, but for the most part, that's not what we're dealing with, okay? Most of the time, when our family is not supportive, when they're not on board with our goals or with our direction, it is a subconscious, totally subliminal, below the conscious brain situation. So what we've got to do is we've got to figure out how can we first of all become aware of that, and then how can we redirect that to where we are all moving in the same direction in a very cohesive and healthy, thriving environment as one collective unit, as a team, right? Okay, so first thing that we want to look at is what is the energy in your home? You know, everything is energy, right? We know that. Everything is energy. And when you walk into your home, first of all, you know, there's science shows that, and I'm sure you've noticed this when you walk into anyone else's house, every person's home has a unique smell, and it also has a unique energy. Okay, now just because it has a unique smell, I'm not saying like it's a bad smell. It could be a good smell. It could be just a different smell. And a lot of times when you just walk, you know, you open someone's door and you walk across their threshold, you can just get a whiff of their family. Again, not that it's bad. You can just, and a lot of times you don't even register it consciously, but you just like, oh, something smells a little bit different, right? Again, not good or bad, just everyone, like you have your own individual fingerprint. Every home and every family has their own individual smell. Okay, same thing with energy. So we have energy. We have an energy that goes along with us, and that energy, when you add up everyone else's individual energy, then that becomes a collective energy. Now, here's something else interesting that happens. You can have energy, an energetic tone, an energetic frequency all by yourself, but then when someone else comes into the equation, then all of a sudden you have a very different shifting energy. Well, what's an easy way to show that? Think of somebody that triggers you, someone that drives you crazy versus someone that you really, really love, adore, and respect. Okay, can't you feel your own energy massively shift in that time? Of course you can. Okay, so what we want to look at here is you as mama bear. If you are the mama bear of your home, you got to ask yourself the question, are you the thermometer or are you the thermostat? Or could it be that up until now you have not been acting as either one? Okay, what's the difference? What does a thermometer do? A thermometer takes the temperature, right? A thermometer, if your kid is sick, you give them the thermometer, you can take the temperature that way, right? What's the difference? What does a thermostat do? A thermostat can gauge the temperature, okay? So think of it this way. If you've got a thermostat in your house, and let's say you're gonna keep it on 76 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? So if you open the window and it's 103 degrees outside, like it is right now in Phoenix, well then what's gonna happen? That thermometer, that thermostat is gonna kick into gear and it's gonna turn on the AC unit so that the engine and the motor is gonna work to bring the temperature of the house back down to 76 as opposed to all of that hot air that is coming in from outside and bringing the temperature up, right? So if my thermostat is set at 76 degrees, then for a little while, if there are other influences that are happening, if it's too hot or too cold, then the temperature in my house will fluctuate, but over time, it's gonna work to bring that temperature back to 76 degrees, right? So The same exact thing happens with a financial thermostat. This is another amazing example of how a thermostat or thermometer can work. So if you've ever read the story, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, he gives a brilliant explanation of a financial thermostat. So he says it is impossible to earn $100,000 if your thermostat is stuck on $30,000. Okay? Now, he goes even further and says, wake up, wake up, wake up, because based on what we just said, your thermostat is already determining whether you're talking about $30,000 in a year, $30,000 in a month, $30,000 in a week, or maybe $30,000 in a day, or $30,000 in a transaction. It all depends on our programming, our wiring, how our thermostat is set, right? Hey, Lisa Henry, so glad to have you with us. So if we can understand that if I have a $30,000 thermostat and I want to bring in $100,000 a month, but I'm stuck on a $30,000 a month thermostat, then I've got to work to raise my temperature to where I can actually attract and sustain that level of income, that level of financial abundance, right? Because that is all about the energy. This, by the way, is the exact reason why the vast majority, I forget the exact percentage, but the overwhelming majority of lottery winners are back to their exact financial threshold, their exact net worth within 7 years, back to where they were before they won the lottery. Because they had not upgraded their mindset, they hadn't upgraded their financial thermostat to be able to handle the bigger income and the bigger level of abundance. Does this make sense? Okay, but why is that? Because all of it is energy. So the exact same thing is happening within our families with the energetic frequencies that are happening within our family members and under our roof with our family unit. So I want to ask you right now, as Mama Bear of your family, what would you say is the recurring frequency in your home? Is it positive? Is it negative? I mean, that's just a big blanket, right? I mean, like massive, massive generalization. Is it positive or is it negative? Okay? Is it stressful? Is everyone always in a hurry? Is everyone short with each other? Are you just like coexisting under the same roof without much collaboration whatsoever? Is it an uplifting environment? Is it peaceful? Is it a place that really feels like an oasis, like a safe haven for the kids? Are they always wanting to stay home and bring their friends over? Are they wanting to escape and get out as fast as possible? Are they running to the room and staying in their bedroom with the doors locked and shut as much as possible? Or are they wanting to hang out in the in the family areas together? If you start asking yourself these questions and really taking a poll on your family situation, this is going to give you a lot of insight and indication into your overall family energy. Okay? Family energy can be detected without saying a word. Now again, a lot of this is already for you in the notes. You do not have to write anything down because you can download the notes directly from the URL that I gave you at the beginning. I put it in the chat and then I'll give it to you again at the end. I'll put it also at the end in the chat so that you have it handy. Okay, but you have to ask yourself, am I serving as a thermometer, as a thermostat, or neither? And of course, what we want to be is we want to be the thermostat so that we can kick the energy up and down based on whatever is necessary for the best overall outcome for our healthy, thriving family unit, right? So if we know that right now there is negative energy, if there is negative frequencies that are happening, or if there is any type of counterproductive vibrational energy, anything that is interfering with peace, with flow, with synergy in our home, whose job is it to fix that? Ours, right? And here's something that we all have to understand. As Mama Bear, as chief thermostat, right, for our house, we've got to stop the blame game. See, it doesn't matter how or why we got here. What matters is, can you afford to stay in that space any longer? It doesn't matter why or how you got here. Can you afford to stay there any longer? Everybody with me about this? Okay, now, also look at the other people under your roof, the other people that are with you. Chase, Swaff, y'all are doing an awesome job recapping the notes in the comments here. Thank you so much. Y'all are giving the best energy to this live stream. I appreciate you so much. Okay, so again, take a very quick mental poll of everyone who lives under your roof. Hey, Beckstar, who lives under your roof? Your spouse, your kids? Do you have another family member? Do you have extended family members? Do you have parents living under your roof? Just take a very quick poll of who lives under your roof. When we're talking about getting your family on board, who's involved? Okay? Now, how do they feel about themselves? Here's something very, very important that we all have to understand. And what I'm going to share with you here is totally common sense. We're like, oh yeah, I know that. Okay, but remember, there is a difference between common sense and common practice, right? So as we're thinking about both common sense and common practice, now, as you're looking at who lives under your roof, how do they feel about themselves? Remember, hurting people hurt people. And the only reason anyone is negative or unkind or less than positive and helpful to other people is when they don't feel good about themselves. Okay? So how does everyone under your roof, how do they feel about themselves? How do they feel about you? How do they feel about their goals? How do they feel about your goals? All of these things, remember, if we are playing the long game, and if you're just joining us, don't worry, there's a very detailed description of the long game versus the short game in the notes that I'm giving you related to this live stream, okay? It's a free gift, it's a handout for you, it's got all the detailed notes in there for you. You can see the link in this thread, and I'm going to post it for you again at the end, okay? But if you're looking at your family members, how do they feel about you? How do they feel about each other? How do they feel about their goals? How do they feel about your goals? And we, as the chief architect and chief strategist of our family unit, if we're going to play the long game, we have got to take responsibility for this energy. Okay? It doesn't mean it was our fault. There is a difference between fault and responsibility. Everybody with me on that? Okay. So if we are going to take responsibility for where we are now, then we can take responsibility for where we want to shift to, where we want to go and how we want to move. Okay? And what we want to be able to do here is we want to be able to create synergy in our home and with our family, as opposed to having conflicting goals and counterproductive energy, right? Now, for those of y'all that were with me last week we did a discussion on how to create your long-term life vision, right? So, and I gave you an analogy. I drew a picture for you, and I'm going to draw the same exact picture for you again right now as how it relates to your family's energy. Okay, remember the word synergy. What does the word synergy mean? It means our collective energy, right? So that the sum total is greater than that of the individual parts, right? Isn't that what we want from our family unit, from our family energy? So if I am not aware of this, and if I am not strategic about this, here's usually what happens, okay? I've got a goal and I want to go this way. Can y'all see that? This is my direction that I want to go, right? Now, somebody else in my family, could be my spouse, could be somebody else, and they are equally well-meaning. They want to go that way, okay? Then somebody else in the family is putting out something in the energy that's going this way. And if we're not careful, then what happens is we've got conflicting goals and conflicting energy, and nobody is moving in the same direction. There's no harmony, there's no balance, and we're all in gridlock, in an absolute traffic jam within our own family energy and family unit. Does that make sense? Okay, so then what do we want to do instead? Well, we want to create liftoff, right? Okay, we want to get everybody moving in the same direction, like this, correct? Now, in order to do that, does that mean that everybody has to have the same goals? No, not at all. Okay, you shouldn't want everybody in your whole family to have all the same goals. That's just boring and weird, okay? It should totally be that we can complement each other and we can create harmony, right? Beautiful music, the orchestra, our life song, and our family's song can be this beautiful harmony of everybody working together and supporting each other, even if we're working toward different specific and individual goals, okay? Everybody with me on, first of all, we have to get clear on where it is that we want to go. And then we have got to get clear on and be honest with ourselves. Take that poll, take that survey, check the energy, check the temperature, and figure out where everybody's holding right now. Yes? Is everybody with me on that? You understand how we're going to start this process? Let me know. Okay, good. Now, once we have done that, then we're going to look at something that is very, very scary to some people. It's something called order. Okay? What is order? Order is something that all families and every human thrives on. How can it be? How can it be that everybody thrives on order when it seems like some people, they just love chaos? Okay, I'm not talking necessarily about clutter. I am talking about an intrinsic psychological need for inner order and peace. Okay, what does that come from? Well, order, first of all, it's structure, it's routine, it's boundaries, it's understanding the family dynamic. And everyone thrives with this kind of order, especially children. Okay? And order comes from space management, from time management, and from energy management in the strongest capacity. Okay? So I want to take a second and I'm just going to give you a very informal, higher definition of what these things are. Okay? What is space management? Well, this would be like your physical space, your physical surroundings, okay? There is no question whatsoever that physical clutter leads to mental clutter, and an overwhelmed mind does nothing. So there is massive, massive benefit to living within physical order. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be a neat freak and a clean freak where you're walking around with a white glove, dusting and testing everything every single day. You don't have to live in a museum, okay? But You also do not want to live in a hoarder's environment either. Okay? So you can figure out what's best for you there, but I can tell you there is a phenomenal book. If anyone knows that they could use some physical order to bring some peace of mind and some relief to your internal physical environment, it's called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. It is a phenomenal book. If I had it close enough, I would grab it. I don't see it right off the top of my head, but again, it's called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. I highly, highly recommend it. This comes just naturally to some people. It does not come naturally to everyone. Okay? So if that is something that you and your family could benefit from, I strongly, strongly recommend it. Okay? Now here's something else about space management. It's not just about order and cleanliness, but it's about knowing your boundaries. Every person, every child needs to know their space. Where is their safe space? Okay? Do they have a safe zone? Do they have a little haven where if they need to reset, or if they need a quiet corner, or they know that their belongings are not going to be absconded and taken away, if they can feel safe and have their own little piece of real estate within the greater dynamic, then it goes a long way again to help create order. Now, that you can even create that even if kids share a room. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to live in a mansion and everybody has to have their own space, their own room. But if you can help them create something to where they feel like they've got their own little corner of the world, it helps a lot with space management, okay? Especially if you're dealing with a lot of kids. Now, how about time management? Holy guacamole, this is a massive one. Massive, massive, massive. Okay? Natalie, am I still frozen? Does anybody else think I'm frozen, or is it just Natalie's screen? Let me know. Okay. Time management is such a big, important deal that we cannot underestimate enough. Okay? Time management is not something that you are either born with or not. It's not a talent. It's not a gift. It is a skill. Okay? I've already shared with you that over the next month or so, I am going to share with you, I'm right now working behind the scenes on a 6-week time management training that is going to help you start with a 30,000 foot view. You're going to be able to look strategically, annually, monthly, weekly, and daily to bring order and planning to your life. And that's actually what you are working on earning right here. The first piece of that training is an ebook on time management that I'm going to be sharing with one of our winners tonight. So make sure and share. How do you go into that drawing? You're just going to share this video. Okay, now, time management is a very, very big thing. This is the secret superpower of all superhumans, in my opinion, is time management. Because we all have the exact same 168 hours in a week. We all have the same 365 days in a year. It is what we do with that time that makes all the difference in the world. So if you know that is something that you want to turn up the dial and turn up your skills on, just make a note of that, and you're going to add it to your list of skills that you're going to be working to develop as you are building out your plan. Okay? Again, that's something that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to share something with you very specific and exciting about that in here in just a couple of minutes, okay? Now, the last piece of your order is your energy management, okay? What do we mean by energy management? Again, look at your vibrational frequency. What would you say is your dominant energetic frequency? What is your dominant emotion? Okay, not what do you want to be, but where are you holding right now? What is your dominant emotion, your dominant energetic frequency? So are you usually afraid? Are you usually stressed? Are you usually sad? Are you usually in a hurry and running late and constantly feeling like you're can't catch up? Are you usually self-loathing and just you've got this track record of negative self-talk where you're criticizing yourself and beating yourself up all the time? Are you constantly judging other people? What is your overarching energetic frequency? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it happiness? Is it jealousy? Is it that life is unfair? Do you feel like a victim? Do you understand what I'm asking when I'm asking what is your overarching energetic frequency? What is your most dominant emotion? Okay, so once we can understand that, then what we want to do is we want to put ourselves back in the driver's seat to be able to control and be a master of our own energetic state. Do you agree? Okay, so I want you to write this down. If this is something that you know that you could use some help with, I want you to write down a brand new affirmation. Are you ready? I am a master of my own energetic state. I am a master of my own energetic state. Okay? So, remember, Natalie just brought up a good point. It is impossible to create when you're trying to save. It is impossible to create when you're trying to survive. So we've got to get ourselves out of that survivor mentality and into creator frequency, right? Okay, now that is something that we personally can take charge of. It's not something that happens just like, the flip of a switch, like a snap of a finger. It's something, you didn't get to that level of self-talk overnight. And you're not going to unravel it either, but it is something that can totally be changed with some focused effort. Now, here's the thing. Right now, with this state of the world that we're in, with this global pandemic and the current global madness, there is no question that a lot of people have fallen victim to this global energy. Do you agree? Like the global fear and the panic and the widespread drama, and where people stopped creating and they slipped into saving mode and they went into like this nesting mode at home, and all they're doing now is sharing coronavirus memes on social media and watching stupid shows on YouTube and reruns and this, that, and the other, as opposed to actually doing something positive and productive with this amazing gift of time that we were all given at home. So if we slipped into that mentality accidentally and unconsciously, then it can also wreak a very, very heavy toll on our families and on our kids. So it's something that we have to ask ourselves. Has this pandemic, has the global fear, has it leaked into my home? Has it affected me? Has it affected my children? And what do I need to do to take our power back? Okay, and that is something that you and only you can decide. Do you want to live in fear inside your own home? Or are you ready to take that power back and do something entirely different? Now, I can tell you this from my own personal experience. I can just share with you this. I am choosing not to live under a rock. I have been watching all of the conspiracy theories. I've been watching all of the documentaries. I've been reading all of the reports. I've been looking at the science, looking at the data, and really following the rabbit trail. And no matter which side of the fence that you're on, there's no question that the deception is running very, very deep. There is a lot of deception. There is definitely an agenda happening. There is definitely something behind the scenes that is being orchestrated that we as the common public are not allowed to see, that we don't know what it is. There's no question about that. Okay, it's not a political thing. It's regardless of which side you are, again, on the political fence, there's no question about this. But here's the thing. Once we become aware of this deception, and once we become aware of how thick that darkness really is, then we have a decision to make. Do I want to just go back and plug my head, like stick my head in the sand? Do I want to pretend like it doesn't exist, like it never happened? Do I want to get swept away by the fear and swept away and overcome by the darkness? Because what's going to happen if all I'm doing is watching the news and watching the bad news and watching the battles and watching all of these things happening all day, every day? What happens to my vibrational energy? What happens to my vibrational frequency? What does my overarching emotion become? And if I am overcome and overwhelmed with fear, anger, sadness, or terror, or all of the news and the drama and all of the stuff that's happening, and if I allow myself to be overcome by the darkness, am I in any state of mind to create anything? No, of course not. So then what do I have to do? Here's what I can tell you. Being lighthearted is a choice. Being lighthearted, being happy, being joyful, these are all choices that we can make. And yes, they are all three different. But if once I become aware of this darkness and this deception, and I choose to be lighthearted anyway, do you realize what level of strength and what level of inner character is required for you to crank that vibrational frequency back up there to a place of lightheartedness in spite of all this madness around us? But guess what? You cannot teach what you do not know. You cannot lead where you do not go. You can't give away what you don't have. So if I, as the mama bear, as the chief energy officer, CEO, chief energy officer, and chief excellence officer of my family, if I cannot crank it up into a light-hearted state of being, what are my kids getting? Are you with me on this? Okay, now, let's talk about communication. Communication is the root of every relationship. And on the flip side, a breakdown in communication is the root of breakdown in every relationship. So if I want to get my family on board with my goals, my ability to do that is only as strong as my ability to communicate with my family. So there is not one person on the planet that could not benefit from stronger communication skills. There is no such thing as too strong of communication skills. Okay? So, it is not a gift, it's not a talent, it is a skill. Okay? The ability to communicate in some capacities does come easier to some than others, but it is a skill that anyone can learn and develop. Now, for this umbrella of communication, we're going to break the conversation down into three categories, okay? We're going to look at spouse, we're going to look at kids, and we're going to look at parents, okay? Now, there is a disclaimer in the notes that I have given you about parents. We're not going to go a lot into that right now, but I just want to share with you just very, very quickly that it is very, very important that we respect our parents and that we show them honor, okay? But that is an entirely different situation than needing their permission and their approval and their validation to move forward with your own life. And if we do not know how to create a healthy dynamic there and release and heal ourselves from some of those generational trends that we have inherited, then what's going to happen is, first of all, it's going to create discord between us and our parents. It's going to be an unhealthy energy there forever. And it's going to not allow us to be healthy in who we are, like being whole and complete with ourselves. And then what we don't want to happen is exactly what's going to happen is that we're going to pass those generational patterns onto our own children. Okay, so we've got to resolve those old issues with our families, with our childhoods, with our parents, if we really are committed to playing the long game. You with me on this? Okay, so let's look at your spouse and your kids for the last chunk of our time together today. Now, first thing I'm going to ask you is if you're familiar with the concept of love languages. Okay, Gary Chapman has a whole series of books on the 5 love languages. So there's 5 love languages in regards to like spousal relationships, and then there's another book of the 5 love languages of kids. So if this is not something that you've ever had the opportunity to dig deeper into yet, I definitely encourage you and invite you to do that. It's so strong and so powerful. Now, so the first thing you want to do is identify what is your spouse's love language, what are your kids' love languages, and what is your love language. If you have a hard time identifying your own, ask somebody around you. Ask your parents, ask your spouse, because a lot of times they can answer this for you better than you can even answer it for yourself. Okay, so everything that we've talked about up till now is really long game strategy. Okay, we're talking about things that are necessary for us to do in order to navigate and overhaul and reposition ourselves and our families for our long-term goals. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of people are familiar with these books. That's excellent. I'm so happy to hear that. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to look at some of the short-term tactics. Okay, short game tactics, short game strategies that you can use for specific goals that you are working toward. And these are also listed in the notes that you have from registering for this class. So don't worry, if you don't have them yet, you can get them as soon as our live stream is over. So don't kill yourself trying to write everything down. Okay, but I definitely recommend that you make it as a part of your habit, as a part of your plan, that you are going to go back and revisit how to get your family on board these specific short-term tactics with every single season of goal setting that you have for yourself. Okay, so big question that we all have to ask. What's in it for them? Okay, you want to understand that every single person in your family is going to imagine they've got like a sign on their forehead, WIFM. What's in it for me? That's what everyone wants to know. What's in it for me? Okay, there's also a very famous saying that everybody has a sign around their neck that says, make me feel important. And if we can do that, if we can help communicate, not only in everyone's love language, but help communicate in a way that they understand what's in it for them, your life and your objective, your mission is going to be so much easier. Okay? Now, I'm hearing something and wanted to make sure that everything's still working over here, so I was checking and make sure that we've got good feedback still. Okay. Now, in regard to your spouse, let's talk about your spouse first. Okay, in general, now I'm going to share some things with you that right now, it's a very, very good thing that we've got only women as a part of this conversation. In fact, I'm going to check and make sure my son's not listening. 1 second. Yeshua, I need you to leave this room, please. Leave this room, go to the bedroom, and shut the door. Okay, I have to tell some secrets to the girls, and I need for you to go to your room and shut the door. Okay, go very quickly. Okay. Are y'all with me? Okay, thank you. Okay, if I talk like this, can y'all hear me? Let me know if you can hear me if I'm whispering, because I don't want him to hear. Can y'all hear me? Okay, here's the thing. When it comes to men, when it comes to spouses, now this is just really frank girl talk, okay? Let's be honest. When it comes to spouses, men are highly motivated by three things, okay? Number one, these are in no particular order, okay? They are motivated by food, money, and you can fill in the blank, right? This is all men are motivated, for the most part, by these three things in general. Doesn't matter what their personality type is, it's just the way men are wired. Food, money, and the other thing that we are allowed to give our spouses, right? So here's the thing. Research, years and years and years of research, centuries of research has shown that any two of the three will do. Isn't that fantastic? So if you are in a situation right now where you are not able to provide a lot of money to the team effort yet, guess what that means, okay? You can pick any two of the three, okay? Now, the other thing about men is if they are feeling that they are fulfilled, that their needs are met, these three categories of needs, they will go along with almost anything to a degree, so long as they feel like you are holding up your end of the bargain. Okay? Now, I want to invite you to think of something called a dreams date. Okay? A dreams date. Now, it's actually interesting. I listened to a men's forum, totally not my space, not my area of expertise, but it was a men's forum. And basically what they were talking about with women is that men are most motivated by how the woman makes them feel. So if we are always at their throat, if we're always berating them, if we're always nagging at them all the time, if we're always criticizing them, if we're always trying to help them improve, like we've adopted a self-improvement project, they're not going to last. They're going to hightail it out of there. They're going to be stressed out. They're going to be beaten down. They're going to really feel totally out of their element. And a lot of them will just leave. Okay, but if we can be aware that how we make them feel also works the other way, the other direction, that if we can build them up and help them feel good about themselves and help them to feel like they are contributing and praise them forward, then it goes a long way to getting their support. Okay, now back to the dreams date. Here's what I mean by dreams date. Okay, this has worked for me in so many different ways, so many different areas. But if you are wanting, there's an old saying that it's impossible to get an 11 by 17 dream into a 3 by 5 mind, right? We cannot force an 11 by 17 dream into a 3 by 5 mind. So what we have to do is hopefully we're not married to the person that has the 3 by 5 mind compared to our 11 by 17 mind. Sometimes we have a bigger vision than they do, and sometimes they have a bigger vision than we do. It depends on the area of life. So what we've got to be able to do is stretch. The analogy that once the rubber band has been stretched, then it's not going to go back to its original form. Okay? So what then I would invite you to do is if you have got a spouse that you want to get on board. Remember, people support what they help to create. And we're going to talk about that in just a second as we wrap up. But if we know that people support what they help to create, and we feel like our spouse isn't yet seeing our vision for what it is that we want, I would invite you to do something that I call a dreams date. What does it mean? Well, it's a way that you can take your spouse out on a date you can let him pick the place, you can let him pick the food, whatever, or you can take him and treat him whatever he enjoys the most. And while you are out, apart from the kids, away from the distractions, away from the noise, away from the cell phones, nothing else interfering with the conversation. And get him to open up, and you can start the conversation just talking about, what do you dream of doing? And talk to them about the long game versus the short game, and not in a way that you're preaching at him, and not in a way that you're talking down to him or that you're condescending him, to him, or a way that you're trying to fix him or enlighten him, God forbid, but in a way that you're connecting with him as a friend, as a partner, sometimes over time, romance and relationships can fade. And so, talk to him about, do you remember when we used to have these dreams? Do you remember, what those were like? And I realized that we haven't dreamt in a long time. We haven't talked about what we dream of doing. We've lost sight of those dreams. And I would love it if we could work on that together again, as a partnership, together again as a family. And really kindle that conversation, focusing around your dreams for your marriage, for your future, for your family, for your partnership. And I believe I've shared with some of you before that I have a list. Part of my War Week exercise every single year is looking at my dream marriage and where we're holding up to that right now. And it's an exercise that my husband and I do together. So again, don't worry, War Week is coming to you before the end of the year, and we're gonna all go through it together this year. So you'll have all of that as we go. But it's something that I have found is vitally, vitally important, is hearing what is important to them. What are their dreams? What are their goals? What do they dream of doing? Because they also probably have gotten sucked into playing the short game, where they're, feeling like they have to be the provider of the family, or they're trying their best to make money in the recession, or no matter what they're trying, they can't get a break. And so what we have to do is we have to help them feel good about themselves. Right? And you remember from my big fat Greek wedding that says, the man may be the head of the family, but the woman is the neck. So we have got to help them see the light. We've got to help them see the vision. We've got to help them feel like it's safe and okay to dream again. Okay? And then you can share with them during that same conversation what your dreams are and what you dream of doing. And say to them, this is something that's really, really important to me, and explain to them why. And I know you may not understand it, but it would mean the world to me if you could support me because you love me and this is something that is important to me. Even if you don't understand it, would you be able to support me in pursuing this goal because it's important to me? Okay? And that can be all a part of that dreams date and that dreams conversation. Okay, now, again, I gave it to you in the disclaimer. We're talking about normal, healthy relationships here. If you're talking about people that are dealing with addictive behaviors or substance abuse, or they're emotionally or physically abusive, that is not the type of conversations to have with this type of a person, okay? You need to focus on getting yourself safe, and it's what I talk about in the disclaimer that goes along with the notes. But I'm talking about normal, healthy relationships where you've got just a good guy that you have been, y'all have lost the way. You've lost your way over time with the goals and with the family, and just the burden of a lot of it just can become heavy. And so we've got to take the responsibility for getting ourselves back on track. And remember, like we said in the beginning, it doesn't matter how you got here. It's not about blaming and whose fault it is. The question is, can I afford for us to stay here any longer? Right? Okay, now let's talk about the kids. Okay, kids. First of all, I definitely encourage you to break this down by age group, okay? So if you're looking at, you've got grown kids, if you've got grown kids that you've got to get on board, or if you've got teenage kids or elementary age or preschool, those would be the major categories as you're looking at your kids, okay? And what you want to look at is, how can everyone feel like they have an active role in achieving the goal? Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm working on a really big goal to launch a new company or to start a new business. Okay, so maybe I want to look at how can I get the entire family on board with this goal of I'm starting a new business or I've got a new business goal. Okay, so look at maybe some of the older kids. They can do chores to take things off the plates. They can have positive, helpful attitudes at home. Okay, but also it's not just about how to get them on board with your goal, but it's also how to, again, people support what they help to create. So how can you have all connected goals together? So for example, let's say if you've got adult children, okay, and maybe, okay, Vanessa, perfect. You know, she, even 23 and 25, I would still count those as adult children if they're out of the house. Okay, so maybe you've got a goal, maybe it's a financial goal, and once you reach that goal, you're gonna take the whole family and even the extended family with the spouses and the kids, maybe you're gonna take everybody on a trip or a family reunion, okay? Or let's see, maybe you've got teenagers and if you're gonna share with them your big, huge, hairy monster goal, and you're gonna say, okay, what can everybody do to help us hit this goal? And when we all work together to hit the goal, everybody wins. Well, again, if everybody wins, then we've got to figure out what's in it for them. So how do we, for example, get them onto the same page of what is their language? So for example, they may not really care at all about your business or your business goals, but they have a gadget that they want or a new piece of technology or a trip or an experience that they would love, okay? Or maybe if your kids are in elementary school, you know, maybe it's a toy that they can earn. For example, when my son was little, I would have him, like, he would pick out pictures of a Lego set, a really big expensive one or something, you know, and he would work and we would put that on the refrigerator at eye level so he could see it and he would remember it. And every time I was getting ready to leave the house to go work on my goal, we would go back and we would stand in front of the refrigerator. And by me going to work on the goal and by him having a good attitude and not crying or being sad and him being strong while mommy was gone out of the house, then he knew he was directly contributing to that goal of the Lego set. Okay, maybe it's a trip to Disney or, you know, I've had a lot of my clients and students and team members that they would have a box of toys. They would get really fun, special, interesting toys, and they would go into the one special goals box, and the kids could only play with those toys while mommy was working on the goal. You know, and maybe they got a special prize or points or a stars on the chart if they weren't crying when mommy left the house and they were being really strong when mommy was working toward the goal. Okay, so I'm just throwing some very quick examples at you, but what bottom line here, you look at how old are your kids, what's important to them, what are their passions, what are their goals, and how can you get everybody moving in the same direction? Okay, now, it could also be that you and your spouse have a different method or a different path of getting to the end result, and that's okay. You don't have to see things eye to eye, but what you want to ask yourselves and have a conversation with each other is how can we support each other, or how can we work at least in alignment, even if we want to have our own route of, you know, getting across the finish line. And that really is very important, especially when you're trying to create that synergy. Now, last couple of things, okay? With your kids, there is nothing like a child to help hold you accountable, because you may set goals and miss goals and set goals and miss goals a million times. But to have your kids say or feel like you let them down, oh no, 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 no. That is a whole different level of integrity and a whole different level of accountability. So that means you putting some skin in the game and you sitting down and you being strong enough and clear enough with yourself and being committed to yourself, and those kids will hold you accountable. And they say, Mommy, how's our Disney trip coming along? Mommy, how's, whatever it is that they're working toward. And you had better believe that when they get clear on that goal, they're going to be kicking you out the door to be working on that goal. Okay, so ask them to help hold you accountable. Now, there are 2 magic formulas for creating turnaround in support. Okay, so there are 2 major, very, very important, powerful, secret little tricks that I can give you. Nothing will create a turnaround like apologies and affirmations. Apologies and affirmations, okay? Apologies. If you have blown it, if you have created a pattern of set goals and miss goals and set goals and miss goals and set goals and miss goals to where you have not held up your end of the bargain and you have become what feels like a broken record in your home, to your spouse, to your kids, it's very important that we own that we take ownership for that we own up to it, and that we really take responsibility for any areas where we have not kept up with our end of the bargain. And you've just got to say it. You just got to call a spade and say, look, I know that I've really blown it. I owe you a big apology. I've been telling you for 6 months, 6 years, whatever, that I was going to do X, Y, Z, and I haven't. And the truth is that I've had a lot of self-sabotage. I've had a lot of fears. I've had a lot of, old negative self-talk that was keeping me stuck, and I didn't even know why I was stuck. But this is really important to me. It is a dream that I just cannot allow myself to let go of. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I would love it if you could find a way to support me through this. I don't want to give up on myself, and I don't want you to give up on me. And I am so sorry that I have not been able to deliver up until now. I would really like another chance. Okay? It's a genuine apology. And genuine apologies are so rare today that, first of all, if they don't pass out on the floor, okay, they're gonna see through to the heart of what you're saying. Okay? Same thing with affirmations. Okay? And I'm not talking about affirmations as in like I am awesome, amazing, and powerful. I'm saying to where you are affirming your spouse, you're affirming your kids, you're affirming in the other person the good things that you see them doing. So you're like catching them in the act of doing something helpful, doing something supportive. So I see that you are really trying to support me. I see that you're trying your best to cheer for me. I see that you really want to believe in me. I see that you're, cleaning up the kitchen so I can run out the door to the appointment, whatever. And I just want you to know that it means the world to me. I may not tell you enough how much I appreciate you, and it really, really does make a difference to me. So again, catch them doing something right, or speak to the good in them, speak to them. People will rise to the level of expectation that you have for them. Let's wrap up now with our final point of how to get your family on board with your goals. Now, remember, this is something that we could talk about for weeks and weeks and weeks. Because if there's a lot of trauma in your family, if there's a lot of tension, if there's a lot of discord, you're not going to heal all of that in in a 1 hour session. So if there's a lot of trauma, if there's a lot of hurt, if there's a lot of pain, if there are a lot of old wounds and scar tissue in your relationship, that's not going to necessarily be just fixed overnight. Okay, that's why we're playing the long game, right? We're in this to play the long game. However, having said that, we know that there is a lot that we can do within the short term to fix a lot of the problems that we may have been inadvertently causing or blocking within our own situation. Okay? So here's the last point. You can likely achieve your goals with or without your family, but you cannot achieve it against them. Okay? Now, if I'm just taking a guess here, most of you do not want to leave your family. You want to create success within your family and on behalf of your family, right? So, we know we can either create success with or without them, but we cannot do it against them. It just doesn't work, okay? Every normal, healthy person has a secret formula that unlocks the code for their support. Okay, so it's our job to figure out how to unlock that code. We've got to figure out what's in it for them, what's their love language, what motivates them, what drives them, what are their personal passions. And as we start to figure out that people support what they help to create, if we can help them set goals and we can help them understand how you achieving this goal helps them achieve that goal, and they're all interconnected and they all work together, then those rising waters lift all boats, right? So it is critically important that you are dialed in to what each of your family members really wants and what makes them tick. And as the famous saying goes, when you help enough other people get what they want, then you can also get what you want, okay? And as a mother, a daughter, wife, isn't this massive? Isn't that what we want? An opportunity for you to succeed. And meanwhile, while your entire family unit as a whole and each one of your individual family members is succeeding and thriving, that's exactly what we want. Okay, so this is how we do it. Now again, here are some tactics to help you with the short game, but a lot of this is long game material. So what this means is that probably as your assignment for hanging up from this session, we're going to be done in about 45 seconds, is you might want to carve out some time to just get quiet and just do some serious meditation and reflection on your family. And that will definitely work toward and in your favor as you are getting them on board, as you are getting them and sitting down and thinking about it, and you're putting all of this together. That's going to become a part of the strategy that you're mapping out. But the first thing that has to happen is you getting clear where your family is holding now and how much navigation is going to be required to move them from point A to point B. Sound good? I love you guys. Have an awesome night.